Welcome to another episode of Breakaway from the Rat Race. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Giuseppe Grammatico, Italian man, businessman. He's the founder of Franchise Freedom, which helps unhappy corporate executives become their own boss through full-time franchise ownership and scale up a lucrative side hustle, build an investment portfolio through some unique absentee ownership franchising model. So we're going to talk about that. And to date, he's helped more than 1,000 professionals find the right franchise opportunity. In addition to his expertise in franchising, Giuseppe is also a passionate advocate for business ownership. He believes that owning your own business is one of the best ways to achieve financial freedom and live a life of true independence. Giuseppe, welcome to the show.
Eric, thanks for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited for the show today.
So, you don't have to be an unhappy corporate executive. You could be a happy corporate executive, but you also want to have, it's kind of like, to me, like it's also about having a safety net or something that, if the company that you're working for disappears,
right,
or is letting you go, late career layoff, or health issues, or having to take care of the loved one that is having healthcare issue. You have some income that is coming in, passive income that's coming in from another source.
Absolutely right. I mean, a job. I always say to people, nothing wrong with having a job, right? Business ownership isn't for everyone, but at the end of the day, you're dealing with one revenue stream, your income, your W-2 income, and we are blindly investing in the stock market, which we don't control as well. We're given 5 mutual funds to invest in. Our opportunities based off of maybe the 4 or 5 managers like I had that were above me. So there's really no control there. So unlike back in the day where people were staying around with their companies for 20, 30, 50 years, it is extremely important with whatever that looks like to have that safety net and have a backup, whether that's real estate and some passive investing there, franchising, a non-franchise business. It's truly important to really protect yourself because at the end of the day, we don't know what will happen. We'll get our 2 weeks, maybe we'll get a little bit of severance, but how do we replace that 6-figure salary that we're making? So it's extremely important. And we look at health insurance and life insurance, but what kind of true insurances do we have? Unemployment, right, is for a fixed amount of time. So how do we protect ourselves and replace that revenue stream?
Yeah, exactly. And I know a lot of people are listening and say, you know what, I'm very comfortable. I've been at that company for 10 years. I have I'm like whatever, 50 years old, I'm at 30 years old, or
right.
That I'm pretty much untouchable, So let's make them feel a little bit uncomfortable. What could go wrong? Let's look at the job market in 2023. So what are some of the kind of like the risks that you see right now on the employment side in 2023?
Yeah, so I mean, things are cyclical, right? You have technology, the economy is cyclical. Believe it or not, people have you have conversations about the stock market and the economy, and they feel like they're in line. I said no. Usually, the stock market is a projection of what the economy will be doing. 9 out of 10 people don't even understand that concept. So I think from what we're seeing with just the idea of AI, will that be replacing jobs? Still to be determined. How to the extent. But at the end of the day, we all have to be on our toes. We have to be prepared. Will we see small businesses outsourcing overseas to cut back on costs? So right now it's very volatile. Strong job market or not, things can change relatively quickly. And I think it's just a great idea to protect yourself. But one thing I talk about quite a bit is that some people don't truly realize the benefits, the joys of owning a business.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking before the show, financial freedom, time freedom. What is time freedom? What does that even mean? And some people don't realize that there are options, right? There are options. You can own a business. You can not have to be at work every single day. You can vacation in Europe, and maybe your business out of Arizona is functioning and doesn't miss a beat. So I try to not sell, but just to talk about the ideas of owning a business from owning multiple businesses myself, that there are options. So not just a safety net, but you have options as life. You don't have to get your 2 weeks vacation. Guess what? You could take 4 weeks. You could work 4 days a week.
Exactly.
There's so many options. So my role in what we do as a franchise coach and consultant is just to empower you, letting you know what is out there, informing you, educating you, so that you can make the best decision for your situation.
So I started a few businesses in my days. My wife and I, we had like a low carb grocery store at one point. And we had an option between, let's do a low carb grocery store on our own, figure everything out, or go to the franchise model. And the franchise model was very expensive at the time, and we decided to do it on our own and figure everything out. But that meant that my wife and I had to devote ourselves 100% of the time to the business, to figure all that out,
right.
Find the suppliers, find with the pricing, the system, the shelvings, all kinds of stuff. And we were lucky enough that we were able to dedicate ourselves 100% on doing that, researching that, and planning for all this for months before we opened the low carb grocery store. But if you don't have the time, then franchise might be, and depending on the value of your time, franchising might be the option for that.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it in my book back here, Franchise Freedom. It's the unfair advantage. Just to be clear, I've been doing this a long time. I'm not saying to anyone franchising is the right fit for everyone. It's for someone that wants to run with the system. Some people treat it more as a passive investment. Others will treat it as to replace their job, and then you have everything in between. So just to be very clear, and when I talk to people, well, which is better? And the answer is simple, and my answer is always the same. It depends on your situation. Now, you talked about putting in the extra time and effort and really kind of doing it full time, whereas maybe with a franchise, yes, there's a franchise fee, right? You're paying this one-time entry fee plus a royalty, which is typically a percentage of your sales, but it's getting you up and running. In as little as 30 to 90 days, your business could be up and running, generating revenue. So I'm not going to say one is better than the other, although, we're an advocate, obviously, for franchises, but it's for someone that, like myself, that I run well with systems. I want it built for me. You have your autonomy within the business, but I want to be up and running, generating systems in place so that I'm, instead of figuring the systems and the vendors, I'm working right with my clients and working with them daily. So it's for the person that wants to be up and running quicker, had a franchisor figure out kind of trial and error. So, but it's got to be the right fit for what you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kind of a systems kind of person anyway. So I like to put systems and processes in place. But I mean, I had to spend a lot of time doing that. And it doesn't say that the processes and systems that I put in place were the right one or anything like that, as opposed to someone that they have a lot of experience doing it. Right. They've done it in multiple locations, maybe hundreds of locations, hundreds
replicate,
of stores. They know exactly what needs to happen. So for me, obviously, it was more like a trial and error. And low carb grocery stores, we never operated a grocery store. So we had to learn what that was like, what were the right numbers to look at. In terms of the market,
do that analysis.
Exactly. So am I charging too much? Not enough? On one hand, you don't want to lose sales. On the other hand, you want to make sure that you're not leaving money on the table. So what's the fine line there?
Correct. Yeah. It's funny, when people ask me which is better, I go, why don't you do both? And what we've seen in doing this for almost 20 years is that people have a business plan in their laptop that's been sitting there collecting dust for 10 years.
Yeah.
They look at a franchise, and the franchise has nothing to do with that business plan. Maybe it's low carb grocery stores, and this has to do with massages, the franchise. And what's happening is they're getting motivated from the franchisor. They want to get you up and running, the support's there, the coaching. Sometimes opening that franchise is what motivates you to say, you know what? Now that I've learned so much about these systems and the way CRMs work and vendor relations, I can apply that knowledge to my startup. So it kind of gives you that motivation and the education to go to the startup. And that's the beauty. it's businesses. They don't all have to be franchises, and vice versa. So it's one of the advantages that I've seen.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you would look for? Like, let's say you're interested in a franchise, but you know, what's the process? What's the first thing that you should look at? I'm interested in a franchise. What kind of franchise? What locations?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what should I be looking at first?
Yeah. So, the franchise world, 4,000 franchises in the US alone. So there's quite a bit to choose from. And where people hit anxiety and they start to panic, including myself when I was in my 20s investing in my first business, my mid 20s, was you start looking at all the brands and how they can fit. And that is a recipe for disaster. You could spend the rest of your life researching one brand over the next. And you can literally, by the time you finish your research, you're now revisiting new brands that just popped up over the years. So I think the secret sauce, it was the way I was coached, and it's the way I help each and every one of the families that I work with, is reverse engineer everything, work in the complete opposite, and forget about all the industries, and forget about all the, is it fast food? Is it restaurants? Put that aside. Look at why you're doing this and what you're trying to accomplish. Some people, and maybe a lot of people in the audience, are just looking at it as an investment. They already own businesses. So that's a category in and of itself. Some people are looking to maybe just replace their job for now, something they can run on their own and then build up. And then the most popular category is kind of the hybrid in between, where it's someone that has a job and they want that extra income, that safety net, and then eventually transition out of their job. So there are businesses, franchises that could be run full-time, that could be run part-time. We call that semi-absentee. And then they could be run, we'll call it semi-passive, close to as passive as possible. And that's another kind of category in of itself. So if you figure out the type of ownership, we spend a ton of time on where are you located? Is it a home-based? Are you working from home where you go visit the customer? Or is it something brick and mortar where your customers are visiting you? We look at investment. We look at what are your employees? Are they W-2? Are they 1099 contractors? Some people don't have an opinion, aren't certain because they've never owned the business. Other people have a strong opinion on, it has to be W-2 because I want to control my employees and I want to make sure they're trained and are wearing the logos and things like that. So it's really figuring out the ideal business. And then from there, we take a look at what's available, what's in your investment range. What are brands that, for example, can be run semi-passive, where, believe it or not, and this is something relatively new, the franchise companies, for an additional fee, will run the entire business for you. Find a location, find the manager. This would be close to real estate, with investment properties, where your investment in time is a couple Zoom calls a month. Still making those big decisions and being involved, but for an added fee, the franchisor, it's almost like a management fee. They're running the business for you, but keeping in mind, you still have all the benefits. You own the business 100%, and are able to eventually sell that business. So there's definitely options for everyone, but being specific as to the type of business you want to be in.
Yeah. Okay. So do I have to look at my passion? Because I'm not necessarily going to be operating the business. Like, if I'm not going to start doing massages and in the kitchen. How important is it that I'm passionate or that I love the business that I'm in?
Yeah. So, first off, as far as you had mentioned massages, most of the businesses, you don't need any experience. There are a handful of businesses, but most franchise companies prefer you don't have experience. They can train you in the ways of massage or hair cutting and things like that. So they'll train you from start to finish. But sometimes it's a lot to unlearn, what you've learned in the past.
I don't want to do massages.
Great. So and also another part of that is that in most brands, you're not actually doing the massage. So yes, you're going through a training class, but they're basically showing you, okay, this is what the professionals will be doing on a daily basis. But the key differentiator is not the passion piece, but more the skill set. So, and I think that's a whole show in and of itself. And I've actually done a show on my show, Franchise Freedom, on this. the skill set. So if you're good at sales, you're good at management, that will also dictate the type of business, because some businesses require a larger number of employees, whereas some, for example, in the restoration space, require a very, very small team, very specialized things like that. So, you may need less management experience. You're going to hire a GM. You're going to need more networking experience, networking with your local plumbers and HVAC companies in the community.
Yeah.
The passion piece is where people, I think, get a little, they confuse the two. So with passion, I truly believe, and I was going along the line of, I'm a big soccer fan. So I was looking for businesses in soccer. That's a quick way in many cases. I'm not saying every case, to really kill your passion, because the passion is kind of the way you get away, right? After work, I go to the Red Bulls games with my son, and we will watch the games in the evenings and on the weekends. So the passion piece is spending time with family. It's the soccer, it's the travel. It's for me, I'm a foodie, so I like to try new restaurants. The business is the vehicle allowing me the time and the money to go afford these great things. The business itself is not, my businesses have never been in soccer, because I don't need them to be in soccer. I need a business that will allow me to, for me, have a small team, have systems in place to allow me. So I think if, there was an example where people were looking at a golfing franchise. This is a story passed over the years. A couple guys in the investment world they were passionate about golf. They played golf every day with their clients. So they wanted to buy a golfing franchise. And long story short, they bought that franchise and they've never golfed since, because what happened was they were full-time. It was retail. So it had nothing to do with golf. They were stocking shelves all day long. And, people were leaving, and they had to be open on Christmas Eve, because that's where they did a bulk of their business, and New Year's Eve, the year-end sales. So they found out that being in that business actually allowed them to play less golf than they did as a W-2 employee. So I wouldn't mix the two. I would more find your skill set. If you're an introvert, you're not going to do business coaching that has you on podcasts, webinars, and talking to other small businesses. So I would separate the two and leave the passion as more of the why piece as to the reason you're doing this.
No, that's great. I think that's a great advice. I'm not a big proponent of following your passion. I think it's kind of nice. But I'm a big foodie as well, and we used to have like a gourmet sauce company. Technically, we still have it. We don't do production anymore. Okay. But and we went to a lot of food shows and stuff like that, and we started coaching other people that were also in the sauce business or the food business, and it was pretty interesting. I was passionate about food, but to me, business was business. So when I was looking at the sauce and my sauce business, it was about numbers, it was about production, it was about margin, it was about all that kind of stuff. And then you have other people that are coming in with the dream and with the passion and stuff like that, and they're not really paying attention about the numbers and all of that. So they were spending an enormous amount of money on beautiful packaging, and they're just like, this is going to go in the garbage. You're spending $3, or 30% of your cost is in this packaging that's going to go in the garbage. Figure out another packaging that's going to do this or do that. And, so it was a lot of things like that where, I understand you want us to be beautiful, but this is not going to work. So all kinds of, because eventually it's going to have to reach, you're going to have to, okay, well, I'm putting it here. My cost is $4 for this thing, but then it has to go to a distributor, it has to go to the store, and then it has to be, everybody along the way is making money.
You got to make the thin margins, right?
Are they going to pay $15 for your thing, for your trinket? Probably not. So then you have to figure something out. But so we did a lot of that. So, and that's kind of like, I totally agree with that passion thing. It's sometimes, it could kill your passion. But you have to really be very sensitive about kind of like, your skill set, and really focus on, this is a business. Right. Yes, I enjoy ice cream, but that doesn't mean that I want to have an ice cream shop. So
you got to look at what goes along with it. How many employees, the turnover, kids leaving in the summer to go back to college, and then it turns into something completely different. So I challenge everyone, right? If don't take our word for it. If you want an ice cream shop, go talk to your local ice cream company or business, small business owner, and pick their brain. You know, buy an ice cream, pick their thoughts. Maybe you help them do something while they're talking to you and you're taking the trash out, whatever. But if you talk to someone, I always say that's part of the due diligence is talk to the people doing it. You know, I know online research is great, but talk to the actual business owners and get their feedback.
So tell me a little bit more. Is there like some kind of some type of some industry that are especially hot right now in the franchise industry?
Yeah, I mean it's we've seen quite a bit. So in the franchise world, boutique fitness, health and fitness has been really coming back, and it's because with COVID, a lot of people were working out at home, and now they're working out in their basements. And I'm not going to name any names, but you know who were the equipment we're using that you see online and on the TVs, but you know the social component was really missing. So people are going back to the gym, so that industry has really grown. Other areas such as childhood enrichment, helping combat the childhood obesity epidemic via making exercises fun in sports, where there are franchises that work with schools, has been gaining traction, along with business coaching. And believe it or not, there's a franchise that just deals with reducing expenses of businesses. It is absolutely amazing, and it's a upfront free service. There's a they figure out the as far as what the pricing is. Typically it's a percentage of the savings, but
savings, it's a friend of mine has that in California.
All right, okay, great. Small world. So that's where the need is, right? The business coaches are helping businesses pivot. Do I do in person? I'm in California, but do I just open it up nationally and go more virtually? So pet waste removal. I mean, we talked about, businesses thinking more restaurants. Pet waste removal has been exploding. It's one of the fastest concepts I've seen growing, and there's always a need for it. Pets are not going to stop using the restrooms, and due to COVID, including myself, we got our first puppy. Never had a dog in my entire life, and we have a COVID puppy now, 2.5 or 3, almost 3 years now. So that's an industry that's been exploding, and what's nice is it's an industry that allows you to get into other lawn care like irrigation, fertilization, hedging and pruning, and things like that. So lots of great stuff, but a lot in the home service space, since the shift is still people are still working from home and not going back to the office.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. I mean, so I know I like those kinds of businesses that, you don't think it's a business, like the, what's that called? Like kind of like the businesses that people don't like to do, like garbage.
It's I specialize in the unsexy. The unsexy.
Exactly.
They don't have a big, maybe you've never heard of it. You've heard of the service. Pet waste removal, but maybe you haven't heard of the brand. So they're under the radar, high demand, and still even they're growing exponentially, and they haven't even tapped into the market. There's such people to this day don't know I exist as a franchise consultant, don't even realize that outside of fast food that these types of businesses exist. So we definitely specialize in the unsexy, where there's demand in the market, and with the newer brands you can pick up some really large territories as a lot of the brands are emerging.
Okay, so I've done some let's say I've done some self introspection, and I know that these are my strong point, my strong skills. This is what I enjoy doing every day, and I want to have a business where I can really leverage my skill and talk to people, and then I have a certain budget. What kind of budget could I be looking at? Like what's the minimum budget? And I'm sure there's no upper limit probably, but minimum budget you have to start with.
So I would say what we tell everyone is you want to have at least about 50,000 liquid and about 100,000 net worth. Where do these numbers come from? At the end of the day, there are multiple funding options if you qualify, and there's lots of aspects. You're using a retirement account or SBA loans, which will have minimum credit scores. You're going to put maybe 20-30% down roughly, but you want to make sure you have number one, the franchise fee covered, and you want to have some working capital. So a lot of brands, when they give you the total amount, just say it's 100,000.
Yeah.
That amount is a combination of the franchise fee. We'll just say for argument, just for examples, 50,000. And then the other 50,000 is going to be roughly 3 months of working capital, training, your W-2 employees, marketing, travel, marketing and pre-opening budget and things like that. So they'll make sure and itemize in the franchise agreement. It's item 7. They'll itemize a low and a high. So is there real estate involved? Yes. Well, New York City is going to be a lot more expensive than, somewhere else Midwest. So they're going to kind of break down price per foot, what that may look like. You'll get to speak with them. And then obviously you get to speak with the franchisees. So you want to have some liquidity and that buffer, right? Because sometimes the business doesn't take off immediately. Sometimes it does. But now who are your clients? Maybe it's in restoration where the insurance companies are paying you. So you want to make sure you have a 60-day buffer, to wait to get paid while you still pay your employees. So 50 to 100,000, I say, would be the bare minimum to get involved. And then funding options, there are at least a dozen options that you can fund a franchise with.
Yeah. No, this is great. So right there, this is great to work with a franchisor, because they're already telling you, hey, this is what you need to get started. Right. This is your budget. Too often, I talk to a lot of people are bringing some opportunities. What do you think about this business or that business? And I'm just like, well, I said, did you run the numbers? And what does that look like? And
right.
And people don't run the numbers up front. They don't know kind of like what the business is going to look like in a year, 2 years from now, kind of like some kind of rough projections. And then they dive in because they're passionate about this business. And then they end up that it's costing them a lot more money and all that kind of stuff. Now with the franchisor, they're telling you, hey, based on our experience, this is how much it's going to cost you for this, for that, for the startup cost, how long we think it's going to take for you to start being cash flow positive and all that kind of stuff. So I think this is right there. This is a great advantage for people that they don't really know how to start analyzing their business, run the numbers on a potential business.
Yeah, it's an advantage. You got the high, you got the low. They help you put together a pro forma. And on top of everything else, that's stage 1. Stage 2 in your due diligence is you're gonna get to do listen to pre-recorded calls, live calls, one-on-one calls with existing franchisees, and get the good feedback, the negative feedback, the in-between feedback, and ask them, hey, it's giving me a range, 100 to 150,000. In your experience, was that in line? What did you make your first year? What could each territory, what could each location yield you? So it's called validation. You're digging a little bit deeper, asking the franchisees. It's not guaranteed, but because it's everyone's situation. Did you buy your equipment or did you lease your equipment? Did you buy your vehicle? Did you lease it? So that's going to affect things as well, but you'll have a very good understanding of the business. And then at the very end of the process, it's you get to visit the franchisor, shake hands, decide if that's the route for you. And if everything goes well, you get awarded a franchise agreement, and it's off to the races. And some get open much quicker than others. Yeah, especially something like a coaching business, you can be up and running 30 days. But with something that requires a little bit of equipment, it's going to take a little longer, maybe 2 or 3 months. But it's a relatively quick process.
Excellent. So what are some of these? So you tell us a little bit more about the due diligence. So you mentioned some pre-recorded calls or interviews, like the direct phone calls with existing franchisees and all that kind of stuff. Anything else that we should look at on in our checklist for due diligence? Should we go and visit existing franchises around the area or something?
Yes, as part of the due diligence, if there's others, they'll coordinate, especially, our brick and mortar retail locations, schedule a site visit to go meet the owner. If it's a restaurant, obviously you can pop in and have dinner. Yeah. But if you want to meet the owner, the franchisor will have no issue setting that up so you can meet face to face. So really, the first stage is information gathering from the franchisor. They'll break up the calls, overview what your role is, not what the company does, but what your actual role is going to be crucial. Followed by, financials, pro forma, agreement, territory build out. They're going to cover that. Second stage is the validation. And to your point, you're going to be visiting. You're going to be talking to funding companies to see if what the funding options are and how many.
Are they going to organize the funding as well?
I make an introduction to a funding partner that will essentially do a full review. There's no cost for the review. They'll give you all your options, even options that they don't provide, which is really nice.
Yeah.
So a popular option has been a home equity line of credit, and they'll recommend you go back to your mortgage broker, mortgage company for that. Portfolio loans, you could take a loan on your non-retirement investments without selling your holdings.
Yeah.
Leveraging, if you're in real estate, leveraging real estate. So that there's a lot of different options. So there's a fee if you decide to move forward, obviously, with them. But for the review, there's no fee.
Okay.
We make an introduction to a franchise attorney, an attorney to review the franchise agreement, which is not mandatory. It is optional, and that's based off of, we always make an introduction if someone wants a full legal review.
Yeah.
And it's really, and what I do is I prepare you with questions. So questions you should be asking the franchisor. Can I run this with my job? This is my specific scenario, and taking it from there.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's lifestyle. I think is going to be important also.
Does it work for me? Not in general. Like when someone says I could put 20 hours a week.
Yeah.
What is that? When are the 20 hours? Well, Saturdays and Sundays. That's a big difference than a few hours. So let's reverse engineer with the hours you can put in.
New Year's.
Right. I'm just gonna work all night. I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna work 12 hours and then go to my job. But you want to, is it a time sensitive business? Certain businesses, it's not going to work because you need to be available during the day. Others, where it's more of manage the manager and it's Zoom calls in the evenings, weekends and stuff like that, then it's doable. So it's really, finding the right match, not checking off some, but checking off all the boxes. And I truly believe if a franchise is the right avenue and you're willing to follow a system, if you stick with it long enough, I definitely believe there's a franchise for everyone.
Yeah. So what if I have a franchise? I'm interested in a franchise that requires a location. I'm doing the due diligence. Is the franchisor going to find the location for me? Or do I have to find a location or multiple locations and then run that up to the franchisor to decide if it's the right thing, or how does that work?
Yeah, so the franchise company, the franchisor, what they'll do is they'll, first off, for availability, they're going to look at viable markets. And then in that viable market, they'll break it down and say, okay, it's a market of 10,000 10,000 individuals population. And with a radius of 10 miles, you can't open up another location. So they'll find a viable area, and then they'll work with you to get approved. So you may some be potential, and you would bring that list back to them and say, okay, does this work? So they'll check the traffic. So there is some cost and time involved there. So yes, they will assist you there with criteria, what to look for, vendors to use to give the final okay. But yeah, you fully supported in finding that location, including the contractors to do the work. In many cases, they may have blueprints and contractors you can use right out the gate.
Okay, sounds good. And then finally, the best option of all is the absentee ownership. So I'm very interested in the passive income kind of situation, where I only have to spend like a few hours a month to run my franchise. So I want to have a manager that does everything, and then I just want to basically kind of be at a high level,
right,
getting some passive income out of that. Is there a lot of opportunities like that out there, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so that's a newer category. It used to be, there's this is a third category, and that's as a result of people looking for opportunity outside of real estate, outside of the stock market. And what it is, as I mentioned, you buy the franchise, which could be run both semi-absentee or this passive model. The difference is you're going to be paying a flat percentage as a management fee, and they fall in areas such as home services, pet care and transportation and things like that, where essentially you get a service type of business. The franchisor comes back and says, okay, we are going to find the general manager. If there's an office needed, we will find that. All we need from you is final okay and check off saying, yes, maybe doing the final interview with the GM, final okay, and signing off on the lease. And typically the way these models are built are built more for the investor, that it can put in a couple hours a week so they know what's going on. I'm sorry, a couple hours a month. They know what's going on with the business. It's typically a Zoom call. You can live anywhere in the world, which is the beauty, since they're running everything for you. If the GM quits, something happens to that person, they're going to go replace the general manager. So you can live anywhere. It's a fully remote business, but they are looking for someone specific. So it's typically a little bit larger of an investor where they're looking to take over a market. So instead of saying, I want to buy or invest in one home insulation type of business in Atlanta, I just want to buy this one zip code. They'll say, no, we want you to take over all of Atlanta, which is, 8 territories, and you're going to need 8 vehicles eventually. So the advantage there is you own the market. There's no kind of confusion. Well, who owns North Atlanta or South Atlanta? You own the entire market. And because it's fully remote, if 8 territories is out of your comfort level as far as investment, you can go somewhere else in the US that maybe has a smaller city and maybe invest in 2 or 3 territories. But it's really meant for someone that wants to grow something big, own their market, treat it more as an investment, an alternative outside of real estate. You're involved in the business as much as you want, at least those 2 Zoom calls. You benefit. And the biggest thing I get, and the concern is, well, I don't own the business. You own 100% of the business. You're just paying a management fee. It's a the agreement runs in length in terms with the franchise agreement itself. So at the end of the 10-year franchise agreement, you can decide if you want to renew and do another 10 years. So so some people have loved that idea, just because right now they just don't have that much time to put in the business.
I would love the idea, especially I'm looking to invest in something where I can get some vehicle depreciation and stuff like that I could go and offset some other income somewhere else. So if you have like a transportation business where I get to buy like trucks and stuff like that, so that'd be interesting.
IRS Section 179, you get to accelerate the depreciation on your vehicles, your equipment, and everything else. So people are taking advantage while it's still available, and it could be definitely a viable option. But really, we spend a lot of time learning. Every single family we work with, we spend a lot of time there, and we make the intro directly to the brand. So we make an intro. You are not waiting a week or 2 weeks for a callback. You get an email immediately, and they love speaking with you, and continuing the conversation to make sure it's a good fit.
So Giuseppe, what in your service, how do you get compensated for your services?
The franchise companies pay our fees, so there's no fee to anyone I work with. Just like a executive recruiter, a real estate agent, they pay us to bring them good quality candidates. It doesn't affect your investment. If you go directly, the franchise fee is exactly the same. So I work with the willing. When someone asks, well, who do you work with? People willing to follow a system, that are willing to put in at least an hour with me a week. And then as we go on, sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. But if you have the time, it's more of a time commitment. I'm able to, work with you. If the timing isn't right and the financials are close but not there, we put together a game plan. We talk to the funding company. Maybe we talk in 6 months. But I'm always available. Produce a weekly podcast with how to sell your franchise, how to buy your franchise, and everything in between. So how does it compare to real estate? I never like to say one is better. I like to talk about diversification and owning a little bit. You can own the building that your franchise is located in. So, but yes, no fee or contract for what we do.
And your podcast is called Franchise Freedom?
Franchise Freedom. The book is Franchise Freedom. Go right to the website, ggthefranchiseguide.com, and you can download the webinar, the book. The podcast is on there. We have a new site launching soon. So 25 of our top FAQs. I did a 2-minute video in each. So take advantage of that, and you could book a call directly on the site. There's no, it's 20 minutes, and in 20 minutes together, we can figure out if a franchise is a potential fit or not.
That sounds great. It's definitely worth it. So Giuseppe, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your experience on the franchises. And so I think I have all your information. I'll put that in the show notes, and people can connect with you. So thank you.
Eric, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Great.
Thank you for listening to Break Away from the Rat Race with your host, Eric Martel. If you want to share your story and experience with our listeners, please message us on Facebook at Break Away from the Rat Race. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast on iTunes.